Monster City Madhouse, a year-round online store full of Halloween and classic horror shirts, with an emphasis on the vintage look. Use code SAVE10 for 10% off your order. MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Free shipping and financing's available. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. I am the American Haunted Historian, Alan Searcy. So today's going to be kind of a fun, different episode. Not really a ghost story, but really, I guess, true crime, American history. It's a really wild tale. So I've been telling you guys for a few weeks now, Pistols at Red River, my new book, is coming out. Well, it's here. Pistols at Red River, it's on Amazon, KDP, Ingram has it. It's available in stores in select locations. You can just Google it. It's on Amazon if you want to grab it. But anyway, Pistols at Red River, it's a story of Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, he's a polarizing character in American history. I grew up in Middle Tennessee, so he was kind of like the guy as far as like when you're studying local history. He was our 7th president, and before that, you go all the way back to the early, I guess, the 1700s. He was a kid. I think he was a 12-year-old kid. He was like a messenger during the American Revolution. He was a courier for the Patriots. Well, during the battle with England, there was a guy who he got captured by a British soldier. The soldier got real smart with him. Jackson got smart back, and the guy backhanded Jackson. And he just kind of maybe set the tone for his life with a chip on his shoulder. But anyway, Jackson, he comes to Middle Tennessee. He becomes a lawyer. Judge John McNary is kind of his mentor, is grooming him to, tutor him as a judge and kind of bring him along. And John McNary has a younger brother named Nathaniel McNary, who kind of comes into play later. But anyway, Andrew Jackson, he comes to Nashville, and he when he gets here, he starts rooming in Nashville, a boarding house, and he meets a young lady named Rachel. Well, Rachel is a divorcee from Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Her dad is John Donaldson, the founder of Nashville, but she was married to a guy in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Well, the guy in Harrodsburg beat her. They lived in a boarding house. Well, when she left, John Overton, who was a boarder at the boarding house, assured her, hey, I'm going to make sure your divorce papers are filed. We're going to, make sure you're free and clear. I'll take care of you. He was a friend to her as a confidant. Well, flash forward a few years, John Overton comes to Nashville. He's buddies with Andrew Jackson, real close friends, actually. And he's a confidant of Rachel. He's a friend of hers. Well, Andrew Jackson, he resigned as the Superior Court Justice in Tennessee to take over the Tennessee militia. Well, as he's kind of rising politically, becoming a big guy around town, these bigamy charges. Well, when John Overton was supposed to be getting these papers filed for Rachel and for the divorce, it was a weird time in Kentucky. Kentucky was a territory of Virginia. Well, they became the Commonwealth, became their own state. And during that time, Rachel's divorce papers, they just got lost in the shuffle. So what's going on? Well, Andrew Jackson, him and Rachel, they start courting, they start dating, they get together, they get married. Well, he's in the saloons of Nashville. Hey, he's married to a married woman. He can hear him, out the corner over there just whispering about him. It's just driving him nuts. So Jackson, he was a pretty prominent guy. He was a wealthy man. Well, he liked to go to the racetrack in Nashville, Clover Bottom. That's where pretty much all the upper crust of Nashville went. And racing was kind of a class thing. Like all the main people in Middle Tennessee would take their horses to the track, and they would bet. They would go spend the day smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, and just hobnobbing, and just that's how you kind of became part of the upper crust, part of the main people there in Nashville at the time. So as this is going on, there's a guy named Joseph Irwin in West Nashville. He also owns a plantation. Well, he sees Jackson at Clover Bottom one day, and he says, I've got my horse Plowboy here is undefeated. I'm pretty sure he'd take your horse, which was Truxton. Truxton was a horse that was kind of like middle of the road. It wasn't really, it won a few races, but lost a whole bunch of races. Well, Jackson bought the horse from the owner and started training it himself. And I think he won like 7 or 8 contests. And it's kind of, this Truxton's kind of had this big comeback. Well, Joseph Irwin, Plowboy, my horse, will leave your horse in the dust. So Jackson's like, okay, tell you what, let's have a wager. We'll settle this on the track. So they agree. Their horses will run in a week. And they agree for a certain amount of money. Well, As they're leaving, Joseph Irwin tells Jackson, "Well, tell you what, if you don't bring your horse, if you don't show up, I want $800." So Jackson said, "Sure thing, man." And they shake hands and they agree. There's a forfeiture clause in this wager, $800. So, unfortunately for Joseph Irwin, the next week his horse pulls up lame or something wrong with his hoof, and he can't come to the track. So Joseph Irwin comes to Jackson, hat in hand. Hey Jackson, Andrew, buddy, old pal of mine, my horse. There's a problem with his hoof. Let's postpone this till next week. What do you say? I need a few weeks to get him healed up. Jackson refused. No, we shook hands. You're an honorable man. You owe me $800. Well, the problem is, if you've heard the term breaking the bank, $800 in 1806 breaks the bank. Banks don't have $800 in cash laying around. America's still, a young country. The Bank of Tennessee doesn't have a lot of money to go around. So what they come up with is like Joseph Irwin was going to sign some promissory notes, give Jackson a little bit of cash that he has, and pay him over time. Well, this satisfies the debt at the racetrack. Well, in the saloons and taverns in Nashville, word gets around. Joseph Irwin's not good for his word. He's not making good with his bet with Jackson. The word breaks out. It goes from the tavern and saloons, gets to the racetrack. There are people who start refusing Joseph Irwin races. Oh, you're not good for your word. You have no money. Well, Joseph Irwin, his daughter recently married a young man from Maryland who recently came to town named Charles Dickinson. Charles Dickinson was a young, hotshot, brash attorney who had studied under Justice Marshall in Virginia. He was a promising attorney, bright future. Of course, with a wealthy father-in-law kind of greasing the wheels in Nashville, he's going to work his way up. So as this is going on, Jackson runs around with Dickinson. In some accounts, he knew him. He'd met him in a boarding house years earlier. But anyway, so they're at the tracks, and Dickinson one day has some whiskey and confronts Jackson. Hey, what are you doing putting my father-in-law down? Why are you speaking ill of him? Why are you people telling him he's not a man of his word? Why are you saying he's not honorable? Honor was a big thing in the upper crust of society back then. So Jackson, he tries to calm the waters. Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I have not besmirched Joe's good name. I don't know what you're talking about. So they shake hands and agree, okay, I'm not going to speak ill of Joe. And then a few weeks later, they're back at the track again, and they're around a crowd of people. Judge John Overton, who was friends with Rachel back when she was in the boarding house, who's also now in Nashville. He's one of Jackson's confidants, one of the he's a Superior Court justice in Tennessee. He's a very prominent guy. So Dickinson, Joseph Irwin, Jackson, some of their buddies are at the track, and Rachel makes a remark to Joseph Irwin about, hey, when are these horses going to race? Because Truxton's going to leave Playboy in the dust. Well, Charles Dickinson turns to John Overton and says, yeah, in the dust, just like Rachel left her first husband when she met the general. Well, this doesn't sit well with John Overton. He eventually tells Jackson, hey, Dickinson's popping off about you at the racetrack. Again, Jackson goes to him, tries to smooth things over. Dickinson apologizes. He said, hey, maybe I did say something, maybe I didn't. I was drinking heavily. Me and Joe, we've been drinking whiskey at the track. If I said something, I apologize. So the thing is, you think this is kind of getting smoothed over. They're going to sweep this under the rug. Well, no. Dickinson's a young, brash attorney, and he thinks he can kind of make a name for himself by, taking shots at Jackson. So they go to the courthouse. They go to the City Hotel. The City Hotel was right there by the river. It was kind of like the main saloon, the main tavern. Well, as all this is going on, there's some other attorneys. I mentioned Nathaniel McNary. He was the brother of Jackson's mentor, John McNary. Thomas Swan's another young attorney who's kind of friends with Dickinson, McNary, Joseph Irwin. So one day Jackson's at the City Hotel with John Overton and his brother Thomas, who comes into play later, and a guy named John Coffey, who was, Jackson was the general, he was the leader of the militia. John Coffey was one of his lieutenants. So Thomas Swan comes up to Jackson in the City Hotel and says, hey, why are you speaking ill of Mr. Irwin? And he kind of gets real hot with Jackson. Well, Jackson, in the middle of the day in the City Hotel in front of hundreds of people, he gets his cane and just beats Thomas Swan in front of everybody. And no one does a thing to stop it. I mean, it's a class thing. Thomas Swan had no right to speak to Jackson the way he did, and Jackson just beat the fire out of him in front of everybody. Well, this doesn't sit well with Nathaniel McNary, the brother of Jackson's mentor. He challenges Jackson to a duel. Well, Jackson won't accept. His brother John was his mentor. He refuses to engage. He doesn't want to shoot at his mentors, as the brother of his mentor, and rightfully so. Well, John Coffey, he picks up the mantle. He says, "I tell you what, if you want some of this, you can have me." So Jackson tries to talk him out of it, but ultimately John Coffey and Nathaniel McNary, they run in these same circles, they end up on the dueling grounds. And during this time, the dueling grounds were in southern Kentucky. Franklin, Kentucky is roughly where it was. It was illegal in Tennessee, so they went to the Kentucky line. They call it, there was a mill there, Harrison's Mill. And the big field besides Harrison Mill is where they had duels. So they agreed to meet there by the Red River, the Kentucky line. And that morning, Coffey is there with his second. In these things, you had seconds, you had assistants. The seconds were there to try to like just squash the whole thing. Get the two guys to shake hands, fire in the air, and walk away. It's called eloping. You waste your shot, you shoot in the air, you shoot away, you shake hands, you leave. You save face. There's still honor. Well, Nathaniel McNary does not want to delope. John Coffey does not want to delope. So they mark their paces. I think it was like 8 feet apart. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire was going to be the signal. So they go 5, 4, 3, 2, bang. Nathaniel McNary shoots early. John Coffey takes a bullet in his leg and drops to the ground. So as this is going on, the second, John Coffey's having a discussion with his second. Okay, do you want to take the shot? What should we do? And the whole time, Nathaniel McNary is just standing there. Okay, they're going to end me. I got to stand here and wait for this shot. What they come up with is John Coffey thinks it'd be smarter to let McNary he'll have no honor after today. What they decide to do is he's going to write a letter to the editor of the main newspaper there, explaining exactly what happened. Instead of getting shot by John Coffey, he's going to write a letter to the editor saying, "Hey, I shot first. I'm a coward. This is what transpired at the Red River." So they come back to Nashville, and Nathaniel McNary, he wrote the letter, it was published in the paper. Everybody had a good chuckle. McNary, I think he went to New Orleans for a few weeks or months to kind of let the air settle. But yeah, McNary pretty much was a non-factor at that point. But as this is going on, Dickinson and Jackson, it's getting heated. The war of the words in the saloons. Well, I told you Joseph Irwin, Dickinson's father-in-law, is a very wealthy man. What Dickinson does next really is like dropping a nuclear bomb in Nashville. He goes to the editor of the paper his father-in-law owns, and he writes an op-ed calling Jackson a coward, poltroon, all these cool 1800 insults. Well, Jackson cannot let it stand. So he answers the challenge, and they agree to go to the Red River. Well, let me back up a little bit. Jackson is no stranger to a duel. Years earlier, when he was in the Tennessee militia, he had a disagreement with John Sevier. And if you know Tennessee history, John Sevier was the governor of Tennessee. Well, Sevier at the time wanted to be in charge of the militia and be the governor. Jackson wanted to be in charge of the militia. A war of words ensued. They have an impromptu duel. Sevier shoots at Jackson. Jackson shoots at Sevier. Sevier gets on his horse. He's charging at Jackson. He falls off and he breaks his sword. Jackson starts laughing because, a broken sword is pretty much dishonor. Jackson said, "Okay, you've broken your sword. We're just going to call this like it is." So Jackson had been in some other duels, and he accepts this duel with Charles Dickinson. And like John Coffey, they're going to meet at the Red River. Well, the founder of Nashville, James Robertson, goes to Jackson and says, "Hey, you shouldn't do this, but you can't do it in Nashville. Go to Kentucky," and that's where they're going to do it at the Red River. So as Jackson has agreed to this duel, there's a lot of wagering and betting in the saloons in Nashville. And a lot of the money's coming on Charles Dickinson. Jackson didn't know that in Maryland, the reports of Dickinson dueling in Maryland, he was either 7-0 or he was up to 13-0. He'd never lost a duel. So Jackson's he's getting this information after he's already accepted, and he can't back out. He's an honorable man, and honor is all you have when you're in the upper crust. That's so important to you. So he agrees to see this duel through. So as he's talking to his friends, John Coffey, John Overton, John's brother Thomas, they devise this scheme. So Thomas Overton, who was going to be Andrew Jackson's second in the duel, John Overton couldn't be the second because he was Superior Court Justice. That's a bad look. John Coffey had a bad leg. Thomas Overton kind of gets it by default. So they're talking about what to do. Well, Jackson, when he goes to the Red River, they suggest, hey, wear Thomas's overcoat, because Thomas is short and stocky. Andrew Jackson's a tall, lean man. So the big coat on a tall, lean man might throw off the aim. Where is he going to shoot? So that's kind of the plan. And furthermore, Jackson suggests, well, here's what we're going to do. Dickinson's going to get in a hurry. He's going to take his shot and he's going to miss me. And I don't want to be rushed. I want to shoot him through the heart. So not only is he going to wear this big, heavy overcoat that's going to throw off Dickinson's aim, he's not going to fire. He's going to let Dickinson shoot first, which is unheard of. Usually in a duel, you go there, 3, 2, 1, bang. You draw your gun, you try to shoot first. So it's crazy what he's come up with. So when they get there to the Red River, Hanson Catlett is Dickinson's second. Him and Thomas Overton, they go through the pleasantries. They go through the paces. They figure out where their marks are going to be. They mark them. Jackson, Dickinson, they go to their spot. Sir, do you wish to elope? Jackson will not waste his shot. Dickinson's the same. He wants to shoot Jackson. He wants to be the guy who drops Jackson and ends him. So killing Jackson would, really cement him in Nashville as being the guy. So they mark their paces. Thomas Overton wins a coin toss to count down from 5 to 1, shoot. So they're standing there at the Red River, May 30th, 1806, that morning. Thomas Overton starts counting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bang. Dickinson shoots. Jackson stands there. Dickinson looks at Hanson Catlett, his second. Did I miss? No, he didn't. Jackson took the shot right in the chest. But Jackson never got a shot. He grits his teeth. He raises the gun. He sizes Dickinson up. Click. The gun misfires. So Dickinson looks at Catlett. Catlett looks to Overton. What do we do? Is it settled? The whole time, Jackson's fidgeting with his gun. Pulls up the gun, takes another shot, bang, drops Dickinson. Dickinson bleeds out and dies an hour or two later in a saloon nearby. So Jackson, like I said, he got shot right by the heart, carried the ball with him most of his life. But there was a lot of, it kind of backfired on Jackson. He killed a young man. He was a father. It really dampened his political aspirations. He was kind of frowned upon around Nashville after he shot Dickinson. But, his honor was worth it. To him, speaking ill of Rachel, his beloved wife, that merited the duel. And speaking of Rachel, so if you think that politics is nasty in 2020 or 2024, 2028, whatever, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, whoever, whichever side you're on, it's nasty. The Democrats, Republicans are always at each other's throats. Well, back then, Rachel, when Jackson ran against John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson won a very heated race. There were reports of the bigamy all in papers all over the country, which really wore on Rachel. So Andrew Jackson, he found out that he won the nomination. He won the race, and Rachel went shopping and bought this beautiful dress to wear to Washington for the inauguration. Well, a week or two after they found out he had won the presidency, Rachel has a massive stroke and dies. It was a heart attack. Just the nerves just wore on her. All these attacks in the papers every single day. So it's just really sad that Rachel bought this beautiful dress to wear to Washington, but she wound up being buried in it on the grounds of the Hermitage where Jackson lives. So all this stuff, it's so wild with Andrew Jackson and the dueling. And there's also another footnote with Dickinson. He was buried on Joe Irwin's farm, which was called Peach Blossom in West Nashville. Well, there were some rumors he actually was shipped to Maryland and buried on his family's land there. Well, flash forward, I guess, 190 years later, they are working in Nashville, and the surveyor, or this lady who buys this house in West Nashville, finds that there's a coffin. There's like a burial plot in her front yard. I started doing some research and bring out the state of Tennessee, and they find out that Charles Dickinson was buried in her front yard. So naturally, the state of Tennessee had to go dig him up, and they reinterred him at the Nashville City Cemetery. So I'm researching all this stuff, and it's just so bananas. The dueling, which is a class thing. Like lower people, like if you worked at a general store, you couldn't go duel. But the people who were, lawyers, attorneys, the general, the militia, they could go do it. And Jackson, I mentioned earlier, like he kind of hampered his political aspirations. People frowned upon him. Like he really struggled until the War of 1812 when he got sent to Alabama to go fight the Red Sticks in Alabama. There's two wars during the War of 1812. The Red Sticks are fighting the Lower Creek Indians in Alabama. And that's another thing. But Jackson won that battle in Alabama, then was sent to New Orleans. And, Jackson, when he went to New Orleans, became a legend for what he did down there, turned away the British, kind of became the hero of the War of 1812, and rode that all the way to the White House. But anyway, Andrew Jackson's a controversial figure, and rightfully so. I mean, you displaced the Cherokee Indians, it's Trail of Tears is all on him. But just calling balls and strikes as a historian, Andrew Jackson was a wild, wild guy. I've actually got some notes. I have an idea for a follow-up to this book, a second book about Jackson, because there's so much material with him, with dueling, and there was an assassin that went to the Capitol to kill him, and just, he was another duelist tool, and that's probably going to be part of the second book. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about that because it's something I've been hinting at, and it's a really fun project. So check out Pistols of Red River. It's on Amazon. And also, while you're here, if you find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a review, like and share. You guys have been great, with sending me questions and liking, sending in reviews and stuff. And I do this, guys, for you, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me. And check back in a few days. I got another Q&A I've got lined up. You guys have been sending in questions, and if you want to get your question in, send it to Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook, Instagram. You guys send me questions. I've done a lot of wild, weird stuff, but I enjoy, the back and forth with you guys. So, send me some questions on Southern Ghost Stories Facebook, and I'll talk to you guys here in a few days. Check out the exclusive shirts from Monster City Madhouse, Gravestone, Rocktober, and Val Halloween. All that and much more at MonsterCityMadhouse.com.